Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's open forum. I'd like to welcome you all. Thank you all for coming. Today we have a very special guest. I see that she is here, but I do not see her face yet. Anita Malik. So whenever Anita's ready, I'm sure she will pop her camera on. So we are doing great. Thanksgiving's next week. I hope you guys are doing well. There's lots of moving and shaking and lots of new things to talk about with mortgages and other things that we'll talk about when Anita is finished with us. But I see Anita is on now. Good morning, Anita. You're on mute.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
All right.
Good morning. I know we had some kind of miscommunication on the topic today, which was my fault. But just whatever you want to talk about today, your show.
Okay. I promise it's interesting. And we'll definitely, I love the topic that you had mentioned too. So we can definitely do that another day.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. Can you guys see this PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. All right. So this is, as usual, guys, I wanted to just introduce myself. My name is Anita Malik. Thank you, Ryan, for the lovely, wonderful introduction, as you always do. I'm an attorney by trade, and I love helping buyers, sellers with closings. I love spreading knowledge, and I love sharing whatever I know. I've been doing this for about 14 years. I've litigated, I've represented buyers, I've represented sellers, and my favorite thing is always coming to the table every time. Every time I sit down to do a signing, it's probably my favorite thing. So ask questions. I'm here. If I don't know something, I'll go back and get an answer. So today's topic is deeds investing. How do we vest property in Florida, and why it's important for you as agents to know the different methods of vesting. So we'll talk a little bit about that. I just have a couple slides, but I love interactions. So please ask questions. If you have had an experience, feel free to share it, and we'll go from there. So I'll start by saying this, that I do think that everyone should, I think that everyone should, when you are either representing a buyer or a seller, there's a couple things that you should investigate. The first thing is you want to look up the deed, the current deed of the property, right? Because you want to know who owns it. Are you talking with the right seller? Or if you're representing the seller, is the right people signing your listing agreement? So it's so important that you look up the current vesting and the current deed and how it is. The second thing would be the property taxes. Even though we'll save that subject for another day, I always tell agents, look up the property taxes because it's always changing. The market is changing, and you want to make sure your buyers have the affordability factor on that. But going back to the deed, if you don't know how to look up the current deed, usually I always tell people start with going to that county's appraiser site, and you should be able to enter in the address or the parcel number, and you can find the last recorded deed. If you are having any trouble at all, reach out to me or my team. Just send an email to marketing@theclosingcity.com, office@theclosingcity.com, and we'll get you a property report on that property instantaneously. And we can tell you who's on that deed. So that's the first thing, is to look at that deed and see who's listed, right? So, and if you're representing the seller, you just want to make sure that, okay, I see two people are listed as the grantees, who would be the owners now. You want to make sure they're both alive, and are they both willing to sell, right? Because if there's any friction, then you want to make sure you're capturing the right person. You also want to know the marital status. So when you look at that deed, usually it will have a marital status of each person that owns the property. It should be on the deed. Sometimes it's missed. Sometimes it's not there. And the reason that's important to know is because we're in a homestead state. So if your seller is married, there is a good chance you will need the spouse to sign up on that deed. There has been some litigation where I've been asked, well, this is my seller's investment property. Does the spouse still need to sign? And I've always said that if it's in an LLC, I think you can get away with it. If it's solo, then I think that there's a good chance that that spouse may need to sign, even if it's not a homestead property, because that could be a marital asset. So that's some of the things you want to keep in mind when you're thinking of vesting and representing a seller. When you're doing vesting and representing a buyer, obviously you want to ask your buyer what their marital status is. If they're married, you want to know, is this going to be your primary home? Will this be your investment home? And is your spouse willing to sign and acknowledge the mortgage if you are getting a loan? And those questions are so important up front, because I can't tell you how many times title and closings get delayed because those pieces of information were either not collected, or all of a sudden a wife's like, no, I don't agree to sign, or I'm separated and nope, I'm not going to sign off on this mortgage. And I think some of you may be nodding your head, maybe you've been in this situation. So it's so important to find out, the marital status and all of that. If you're representing multiple buyers, it's important to find out what is their relationship to each other. Are they married to each other? Are they dating? Are they brothers and sisters, parents and a child? It's important to know what the relationship is. And it's important to know what each buyer's marital status is, because once again, we'll be in that homestead type of situation. So you want to make sure you gather that information so that you're giving the correct advice as well. You want to find out from the buyer if this will be their primary home or will it be an investment home, because that changes things too. And then you want to ask your buyers, if there are multiple buyers, that what is their succession plan for the property? So if one of them passes away, what would they like? Who would inherit that property?
Oh, wow.
So those are important questions to ask, and that's something you want to ask up front, because based on that response is how we're going to draft that deed. Okay. Deed is going to be the most important document going from seller to buyer. That's the most important document that gets signed at closing. And does everybody know who signs a deed? Is it the buyer, the seller, both? It is going to be your seller, right? So your seller always signs the deed, and it has to be witnessed by two people, and it has to be notarized. So, and in that deed is where it's going to have the vesting. It's going to have how the seller has it currently vested and their status, and it's going to have how the buyer is going to take the vesting as well. So this is just some general advice on vesting and investigating. Our next slide is about common vesting methods in Florida. So this is more about how can you take a property in the state of Florida? How can you own a property? So the first way that deed, and this is all through the deed, okay, the same deed, right? The first way is you're a solo person. So let's say John Smith is the only person buying the property. John Smith is single, so the deed will say conveyed to John Smith, a single man. Same thing with an entity. Let's say your buyer is an LLC or a corporation. Same thing, the conveyance will be to Building Blocks LLC, a Florida limited liability company. The easiest way, right? The second type of vesting in Florida is called joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. And this is when two or more people own a property and they own it jointly, severally, and equally. And what that means is if that one of them passes away, the other owner or owners will automatically take over the entire share of the property. So for example, if John Smith and Jane Doe are brother and sister and they buy this property, and on the deed it says to John Smith and Jane Doe as joint tenants with the rights of survivorship, then they own this property severally and equally. If John dies, Jane automatically owns 100% of the property. If Jane dies, John owns 100% of the property, regardless of who their kids are, their heirs are, and this even trumps a will and a trust, okay? So even if John's will or his trust says, if I die, the share of this property goes to my kids, But if on the deed it says joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, it will not go to John's kids. That vesting will survive. 100% will be passed on to Jane. And remember, with this kind of vesting, it has to have the exact words. It has to say, as joint tenants with rights of survivorship. If, let's say it only says joint tenants, because I've seen this on deeds too, where the with rights of survivorship part is left off. If it's left off, it's not going to have the survivorship right. So if your buyers intend to take the property that way, if they say that's our intent, we want the other owner to have it, if I die, then you have to make sure you convey to the title company or whoever is doing the deed, it has to say it just like that. The next type of vesting is tenancy by the entirety. This is basically a husband and wife. That's what it is. It's a fancy way of saying a married couple is buying this property. And it's similar. If husband passes away, wife gets full survivorship and ownership of property, vice versa. Wife or spouse passes away, the other spouse gets full ownership. The reason, so people always ask, what's the difference between husband and wife versus joint tenancy with rights of survivorship? The difference is, one of the perks of being married in Florida is that you get extra protection, the homestead protection, first of all, when you are married. And the second thing is creditors. So if there is a judgment against husband, just against husband, say there was a bad car accident and a monetary judgment was placed against husband, because husband and wife own that property together, and if that judgment was not against the wife, no money can be collected from that property because they're married and they owned it as tenants by the entirety. The deed itself doesn't have to say tenants by the entirety. It simply just says John Smith and Jane Doe, husband and wife. And that's a very unique and lovely vesting. I've seen a lot of judgments get waived. So if you're not thinking about married, it's a cool thing to do because you get this perk. All right, the next vesting is called tenancy in common. This is actually the default vesting in state of Florida. So let's say the deed is silent. All it says is John Smith and Jane Doe. That's all it says. It doesn't say husband and wife afterwards. It doesn't say joint tenancy with rights of survivorship. And let's say they're not married to each other. Let's say maybe they're just boyfriend and girlfriend. And the deed says to John Smith, a single man, and Jane Doe, a single woman. That's all it says. If that's all it says, it's considered tenancy in common. Tenancy in common means that each owner holds a specific interest to the property that will be transferred to their heirs upon death. So if the property is owned as tenants in common, and if John dies, his 50% will not go to Jane. His 50% will go to whoever he's got in his will. And if he doesn't have a will, it will go to his heirs at law. Same thing with Jane. If Jane passes away, her 50% will not go to John. It will go to her heirs. If John and Jane pass away together in a car accident, their unique 50% will go to whoever's in their will or their heirs at law. And this is the default. So once again, if the deed is silent, this is how it's going to get, how the law will construe it to be. You can also have vesting in a trust. That's also very common. Individuals, families will create trusts. It's a beautiful vehicle. I highly encourage you tell your clients about a trust, especially your buyers. When a buyer buys a house, that house will probably be the most expensive asset that they own, and they want to protect that house. And a trust is a wonderful vehicle to put that in. So a lot of times we'll see properties get transferred and a trust holds the property. And lastly, if you guys have not heard of it, it's called a life estate deed, also known as a ladybird deed. That's another way to hold title to a property. And it's really just a creative way. If that's really the only asset you have, the big asset you have is a home, basically you can list your beneficiary right there in the deed. The home belongs to you as long as you're alive. You can sell it, you can rent it, you can do whatever you want with it. But once you pass away, whoever is your beneficiary beneficiary in the ladybird deed will be the person that that inherits the property, regardless of what your will says. I think there's a question. Tammy?
Yeah. So I have a ladybird deed on a condo that was my homestead, but is no longer my homestead. So, and I didn't realize, is that only on a homestead property?
You know, I didn't think that was the way, and this may be something I have to look up. I was under the impression ladybird deed could be used on any property. Doesn't have
Okay,
to.
because it says for homestead property, specific type of deed used for Florida homestead property.
Oh, okay, yeah. My slide does say that, but it doesn't have to be just homestead.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay, good.
It could be anything. But it's a cool tool. We do see a lot of ladybird deeds come in because, especially for people like when I come across single people, and that's really the only asset they have, and they don't have a will or they don't have a trust. They just want to make sure their house is the one big thing they have, and they want to make sure it gets transferred to their daughter or whoever it is. That's when it can be used.
Okay.
I think we got a question. Can the beneficiaries be minors? You can list anyone as a beneficiary, right? Even in your will, your beneficiaries could be minors, they could be kids. The only thing that you want to be mindful of is, yes, the property would go to the minors, right? Whether they're in a ladybird deed or whether they're in a will or whether they're in a trust. Minors can't enter into contract. So the problem we have there is that if that minor wants to sell the property or do anything with the property, they can't do it without a guardian, right? So I think the bigger question, Balak, you may have is, what do you do when you have minor kids? So for example, I have 3 minor kids and I have a trust set up because I know that if my husband and I, God forbid, pass away tomorrow, my children are minors, they're little, they can't do anything, but that trust would protect their ownership, that it would protect their beneficiary rights. And in my trust, I can choose who I want the trustee to be. So maybe it's my brother, because I know my brother will make the right decisions until they're 25 or something, right? If you have a ladybird deed and your kids are minors and you list them and something happens, now what happens, because they're minors and they can't enter into contract, if the property needs to be sold, it's got to go through probate. And if it goes through probate, the judge is going to appoint a guardian, right? And who pays for all those fees? Your estate will pay for those fees. So I always suggest that if it's anything to do with minor, float it through a trust. But if your children are adults, then ladybird deed is a good option. Any questions? Really, those are the only 2 slides I had, but I have
a great example for you, Anita. I had something that happened last week. So it's great that you chose this topic. So we had a person who, the husband had died. They have 4 kids. The husband died, and like 3 years ago or something. And he had bought this house without his wife's name on it. He was married, and she signed a form that said, yeah, he can buy it, but she didn't know anything about it, right? So when he died, the property went in quarters to his children. It went through probate. It went in quarters to his 4 children. And she had a life estate in it. So an agent who listed it with another brokerage didn't know any better. And so when they got to title, finally, it took 6 months to sell it. When they got to title, it was a mess because they were supposed to close in 3 weeks, a cash deal. And now they had to find a guardian, and they have to have the judge order a sale. So that takes months. So they went from closing before Thanksgiving to closing, they don't know when. They extended it through January, but it's going to take longer than that probably. Fortunately, the buyer is a cash buyer and it's an investment, so it'll probably hang on. But it was just a mess, and all because the person, the husband, didn't do it right to put it in both of their names. Somebody probably took bad advice from somebody, and then the realtor who listed it, fortunately not one of ours, but ours could have made the same mistake, didn't understand how all that worked. that they needed to get that. They could have got that hashed out in the 6 months they had it on the market. So, and it would be ready to sell. So just a lot of people didn't know anything about this, and it costs money and time and everything else. So now the widow has to make 5 more house payments, how many ever it's going to take to get it done, and may lose the buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to mention that, our judiciary system is great, but it's complex. And especially when minors are involved, judges want to make sure, I've been in so many situations. I've actually been on depositions where I join as a title company, and, the judge has to make a decision that is it in the minor's best interest to sell this house, and if depending on the judge, some judges will be like, all right, I'm going to appoint a guardian ad litem. Guardian ad litem, you do the research and figure it out. And I've seen sales get delayed for months, when things like this happen. And not to mention the costs, right? The family is stuck paying those attorney costs, the guardian ad litem court costs. And it's so important to make sure that the vesting on those deeds, that you as agents understand what they mean, and that your buyers have a very strong understanding of what it means. When they take property with joint tenancy, with the rights of survivorship, is it someone that they trust? A lot of times I see people, boyfriend and girlfriend dating, but they'll own it that way. And sometimes it's also because the lender wants it to be that way. The lender will have it that way on the mortgage, and they'll require for the deed to have it that way. And if they pass away, maybe they didn't mean the other person to have everything, so it's just so important to have that conversation, and your knowledge should be very strong in the types of vesting. And there's, as you saw in my slide, there's only 3-4 ways to take a vesting, right? So you just have to be very strong to know what each means, and how would your buyer want to take it. And that's why my very first slide said that you want to investigate first. All those questions: is your seller married? Was it their primary home? If they're married, is a spouse available to sign? And once again, if you represent the buyer, are you married? Are you, how do you want to own this home? All of those questions will be so, so important. And it helps, before we come to the closing table, it helps us to know as well, okay, this is the plan. This is how the buyers want to take title. So it's so important. And then it goes into the estate planning avenue. Like, you guys are in the best position to recommend to your clients that they should have estate planning. It goes hand in hand with buying a home, in my opinion.
Anita, do you guys do changes on deeds? You guys can, add somebody, take somebody off, et cetera,
Yes.
change the types of deeds. Okay.
Yes.
Is that cost prohibitive in any way? How much, I know it's different probably for each one.
Yeah. It's so usually like it's called a quitclaim deed is what it is. And a quitclaim deed is basically, and it's called quitclaim deed, like QUIT, but I like to say it's quick, because that's really what it is. You're just transferring the property either from a family member to family members. There's really no exchange of money, right? Or you're transferring it from yourself to your trust, or maybe you're removing someone from it. But really, there shouldn't be a transfer of money. And it's called a quitclaim deed. And usually it's around somewhere between $300 to $500, depending on what research needs to be done, and what the situation is. Sometimes we need to get a title search going. Sometimes it's kind of a real quick thing, like, hey, I want to, it's an investment property, it's in my name, I want to move it to my LLC. I'm also the owner of the LLC. Okay, that's pretty easy, If the couple is going through a divorce, we're going to be more cautious, because in those situations, you have to follow, if there's a marital settlement agreement or if there's attorneys, that gets a little bit more complicated. But yes, in general, easy quitclaim deeds are easy to do.
Right. And explain to everybody, because I get this question a lot and I have to explain to them, when quitclaim just quits my claim in the property, does not give you clear title. Just says, I could give you a quitclaim on the Empire State Building, but I don't have any claim to it. So it doesn't give you any ownership whatsoever. I'm just quitting my claim. You're getting whatever I had. If I give it to, let's say, Tammy gets whatever I have in my name. She doesn't get clean title necessarily.
Correct. Quitclaim deed is is the least protective way to own a property. So when you actually do a closing, right, when you have a contract, bona fide buyer, seller, they sign what's called a warranty deed. A warranty deed is the most protective kind of deed. It protects, basically, when the seller gives buyer a warranty deed, the seller is saying, hey, buyer, I promise I'm the owner. I promise I have the right to sell this, and I'm going to protect you for anyone else that comes in and knocks on your door that says the owner, if that they're the owner. And if somebody does that, I'll protect you. And in the back end, they have title insurance, so we'll protect you. But that's the most protective deed to have, a warranty deed. After that, there's a deed called a special warranty deed. It's somewhere in the middle. It's often used in commercial transactions. And it kind of restricts, same thing, it sort of restricts the protection to what that seller and the duration of the time that the seller owned the property. And quitclaim deed, Ryan, as you said, is the least protective deed. And that's why it's really only done between family members, or you're transferring from you to your LLC or you to your trust, because it's just like, hey, I'm not making any representations or any warranties of the past. This is my share, or whatever it may be, I'm transferring it to you.
Right.
And so that's exactly what it is.
And what's the statutory warranty deed?
What's the statutory warranty deed? Usually the statutory warranty deed is exactly like the first one I spelled out, the warranty deed, the most protective form of deed. Usually it's backed up by title insurance. Doesn't have to be, but the seller is giving the utmost promises to buyer that I own it, I will protect you, and nobody else can come knocking on your door saying they own it.
Okay, so the commercial contract has the FAR has a choice of that. I want to convey this by special warranty deed or statutory warranty deed. And I always, special sounds better, but statutory is the one you want. So
statutory is the one you want, yes. Unless the parties negotiate otherwise, but in residential closings, I always see statutory warranty deed. In commercial closings, I often see special warranty deed.
Okay, perfect. Okay, Tammy.
So if you have an investor wanting to purchase a property, is it better to purchase it in their name and move it to an LLC, or purchase it in the LLC's name, or is that kind of up to the lender?
So that's a good question. If there is no lender, LLC all the way. LLC or corporation, whatever their entity formation is, all the way, 100%. If there is a lender, I know sometimes the lender will say, hey, no, we can only give you the loan in your individual name for whatever reason. Then it has to be in your individual name. And then mostly I'll see the investor, after they close, quitclaim it to their LLC. But if they have an LLC and the lender doesn't mind, LLC all the way.
All right, Yolanda.
Can you remove anybody from the warranty deed as a homestead, as an owner?
So, all right, so your question is, can you remove an owner from the warranty deed?
Not an owner. Let's say I'm the owner. Can I remove the people that are in my warranty deed and add other people?
You have to so if you want to remove somebody, then that person has to sign the warranty deed.
Okay.
So if John and Jane are on the deed, and if Jane needs to be removed, first of all, both of them have to agree that Jane will be removed, and both of them should be signing that deed, notarizing it, witnessing it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Malvis?
Sorry, I couldn't find the button to unmute myself.
That's okay.
Yes. Sorry. Question about the tenants by its entirety. I understood it was only for married couples, and it doesn't have to have the right of survivorship wording in there, because it is understood that it is only for husband and wife, and tenant by its entirety. If one of them passes away, the property goes straight to the next spouse. Did I understood that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. Tenants by the entirety is just like the joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, but you're right, it doesn't need that language. It can simply say husband and wife. I've seen some deeds where it will say John Smith and Jane Doe, and it won't even say their husband and wife. But if it can be proven that they are married at that time, its tenants by the entirety.
Okay. So with that type of deed and both owners pass away, what happened to the heirs what happens to that property and the heirs if there are children from different marriages? Like if the both owners, the husband and wife, have their children, but then the wife has another children with another marriage. So, and there's no Lady Bird deed or trust or anything. Who are the correct heirs for that property if both owners pass away at the same time?
So I may have to get you the exact deadline for this, but that's a great question. So Florida's law has, so if the two people pass away at the same time, let's say they both were in a car accident, and I believe, and I'm looking this up as I'm speaking to you because I know there is a deadline. All right, so usually it goes by who passed away first. Okay, so bad accident, husband passes away, wife survives for a specific amount of time, and then wife passes away. Okay, because she's the last person to pass away, she got the property, right? Completely 100%. So it would go to her heirs. But there is an exception to this rule. It's something, if they pass away at the same time, it would go to both of their heirs. And I want to say there is like a number of days, and this may be something I will have to get back to Ryan with the exact number of days, but there is a specific law on that. That's a great question. Usually it goes by who passes, who's the last to survive. And it would go to their heirs. But if they simultaneously pass away, they're both presumed dead at the same time, then it would be split between, each of their children would get half. But
Is each of the children that they had together as a marriage? Or,
yeah. So
what happened to the children that were not both of their children? It was from their previous marriage.
yeah, so I believe the way it would work is, and I'm pretty confident of this, but I will get the right answer to you. But it becomes tenants in common, the ownership at that point, it's treated like that. So husband, wife pass away at the same time. 50% goes to wife's kids. If there's no will, then by law, it's the kids. And so it would go to the kids and the parents, right? So even if they shared a kid, it would that kid that they shared could get 2 times the share. Does that make sense? Because they would get it from the father's side and they would get it from the mother's side. And then if there's kids from other marriages, they would get the percentage of whatever the mother's 50% is.
Okay, okay. And you said that to do a Lady Bird deed, it doesn't matter if it's homestead or not?
I believe it doesn't matter. I will find that out for you too, because I'm not exactly 100% sure.
And in the Lady Bird deed, you as the owners of the home, you can list who your beneficiaries would be for that property, should anything happens to any of the owners. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm fairly certain that a Lady Bird deed can be applicable to investment properties as well, but I will find that out as well, just to be sure. I want to make sure I get you the the statute for it. But correct, you can list your beneficiaries in the Lady Bird deed while you own it. You can do whatever you want with it. You can sell it, you can rent it, you can change, let's say you change your mind, you don't want a Lady Bird deed anymore. You can revert it back. You can do anything while you're alive. But the minute you're incompetent or you're not alive anymore, it will go to the beneficiary.
And regardless, if both owners of the home, if they do have a Lady Bird deed and they list their beneficiaries and both of them pass away, that property doesn't have to go through probate, nor goes to any children that are not the marriage children's.
That's correct.
It will go strictly to whoever the owners put on that Lady Bird deed without going to probate.
That's correct, because that Lady Bird's deeds instructions will trump any will or any other heirs there are. So that's correct what you said.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Malvise, I think you have a question.
Yes, ma'am. You answered my question. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. All right. Thank you. Thank you. And like I said, if you, I think I said this in the beginning, but you can always go to the appraiser's website to find the existing deed. And if you ever need to, you can reach out to us and we can get you a property profile pretty quick. And you can, and it will have who the owner is, and it'll even give you a copy of the last recorded deed and the last recorded mortgage as well. So you can have those tools at your fingertips if you need it.
Anita, tell us a little bit about the Closing City and what you guys are doing there. What's going on down there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think my microphone was on silent when you were talking about me, but you always say good things about me. So I'm not sure exactly what you said about me. So I'll just give a little introduction of myself. I'm sure some of you may have heard me before. My name is Anita Malik. I am born and raised in Chicago. I moved down to Florida about 5 years ago. I'm an attorney by trade. I've been practicing law for 14 years. I have represented buyers, sellers, litigated things. I've probably sat at a closing table 1,000 times. So I love real estate closings. It's my passion. In Florida, I own a title company. I have 2 other partners, and we're called the Closing City. We are one of the fastest growing title companies in Florida. We have an amazing staff here. We make lots of magic happen. We have a mascot. And my job at the title company is I am known as a title genie. And I basically just spend my day educating people and answering questions. Sometimes my agents will call and say, Anita, can you hop on the phone with my seller and explain what tax preparations are? I've tried and they don't understand. Not a problem. I love doing that stuff. We are a unique real estate platform. We close all over Florida and we're expanding to a couple other states. And all our closers are 10 plus years experience. So they're very knowledgeable and they know what they're doing. And our goal is just to give everyone a good experience, share the, buying a home, selling a home. It's emotional, it's sometimes traumatic, but we want to make this experience as positive as possible. So that's what we aim to do. And we get to work with a bunch of wonderful agents. We do have a lot of value adds that we offer to agents that do work with us, because every agent is different. Every agent's marketing is different. So when we do have an agent that joins our family, we usually say, hey, how can we help you grow? What will help you? Whether it's mailers or how can we get you leads and make sure your property moves. So we cater those value adds to agents the way they want to be catered to. And we just love doing what we do.
Fantastic. I think Malvis was looking for your number. If you can put that in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have one last announcement, Ryan, if I may make.
Yes, please do. I wanted you to make this announcement anyway.
Do you know
It's about Friday?
It is about Friday. So one of the things we pride ourselves in is we're honestly known as a teaching title company. Like I said, my job is to educate you and make you better. Make you knowledgeable so that you can go out and you can get your clients. And I know you've probably heard this before, but honestly, I really believe it. The best way to get clients and to make those relationships that last forever is by sharing something you know. So the more knowledgeable you are, the more you can speak about different topics, it just makes you stronger. So that's really what we focus on, is how can we make you better? And that's why anytime Ryan invites me to teach or to share what I know, I'm here. But this Friday, November 21st, at our office in Orlando, we are doing a CLE class, a FREC approved class. It's a 2-hour credit class, and it's the only class in Florida called social media. So it's the only credit class that you'll receive on social media. And the presenter is wonderful, and we do have some seats left. So if that's okay, I'll share the flyer with you. And we still have some spots. So if you are available, there will be lunch, there will be networking. So if you have a couple hours to spare on Friday, please come by to our office and you'll get credit for it as well.
Now that will be in person only, right?
Correct. This one is in person only. And then Ryan, as always, if you ever feel like the team wants to do a FREC, we can arrange a Zoom one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to do that on that subject too, but go to the one Friday. That's fantastic. Yeah, they need it. Guys, you're not doing anything right now this time of year anyway, I've noticed. So get out there and learn your social media stuff and crank up 2026. There are some things going on. We are actually having a pretty good month, but you guys, this is the time to learn about all this stuff and do all this stuff. And man, if you're not catching on with AI, I don't know what AI is going to do to us. I don't want to get off on that, but you're not catching up with AI and social media, then you're not, I mean, you're in the Stone Age with real estate right now. So you want to put your, do you have a link to that flyer or something like that? Some way they could sign up for that class or anything, Anita?
I do. I am not very tech savvy. We have a QR code. Can I email this to you?
You can email it to whomever, but I'm going to, let me see if I can find.
I could probably email it to you now. Because I'm trying to transfer the QR code to the chat and it's not working.
Okay, here it is. I'm going to share my screen. I think you might have to unshare.
Okay, I can share. Let's see.
Yeah, here it is. I'm going to blow this up for you guys. There it goes. Crafting real estate success in the digital world. 2 CE credits. Oh, Tana's doing it. Closing City.
And she's really good.
Yep. All right, there you go, guys. Closing City office, Millennia Boulevard. And when you get done there, come to our potluck Thanksgiving, where it's pretty exciting, Anita. I was talking to the agents, but you can come too. We have a potluck for Thanksgiving Friday afternoon.
I saw everybody is bringing a side dish. That sounds so exciting.
Oh yeah, it was on the email.
In the email, yes.
All right, well, go see Anita first, and then come see us. And that's great. There's your QR code. If you want to shoot that on your phone right now, you can do it there. Let's see if that works. Not in selfie mode, it doesn't.
It doesn't work. Let's see.
No, it works.
Oh, in
It
the
works.
selfie. Okay. It worked,
I had
right?
it.
Yeah, it worked for me too.
All right, yeah, it's working.
Yeah.
So there's your QR code if you guys want to sign up. And there you go.
Thank you. And I hope all of you will reach out to me. I would love to do a one-on-one with you to see how I can work with you and how I can earn your business and how we can make you grow and help each other. So I hope to be hearing from more of you and to help you on your listings and your buys. Thank you, Ryan, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much for coming in. I may go to that class as well. Thank you very much for coming in, and we appreciate you. Awesome class as always, and we'll see you real soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Anita. Thank you. All right, guys. So let's talk about, let me get this off my screen. Let's talk about some of this mortgage stuff that we didn't talk about the other day. They talked about porting your mortgage. You guys hear about this? They aside from the 50 years, now they want to let you take your mortgage from the house you're in now to your next house. So the mortgage doesn't go with the house, it goes with the borrower. And the borrower would just move it to their next house as long as that house appraises, which it probably will, for what you owe, for what you owe and the percentage that you needed to have down. So if you bought a $500,000 house and you borrowed $450,000, let's say 5 years ago when rates were great, and you want to go to another $500,000 house, well, you probably only owe $430,000 now, or $420,000 now, or $410,000 or $400,000, and so the bank will say, yeah, take it. Now, what does that do obviously for the borrower? It's fantastic, right? Now you can get the house you want. Maybe it's a $600,000 house and you might have to come up with the difference. And maybe they'll even adjust your loan, but it's great for the investor too, because believe it or not, they don't mind having these. They paid what they paid for these 3.5% loans or 3% loans or 2.875s or whatever they did. They paid for those already, and they want them to go 30 years. I mean, these are big companies who don't really care that much. They just have a bundle of mortgages that somebody is managing for them. As you know, you guys know, when you get a mortgage through ABC Bank, most of the time they sell it in the first couple of months to somebody else, and you start getting mortgage statements from, somebody else. Wells Fargo. Well, I didn't sign up with Wells Fargo. Why are they? I didn't get a loan through Wells Fargo. I have 2 mortgages right now through Wells Fargo, and I've never done any business with Wells Fargo, but I pay them for these mortgages because they sell the service. They buy the loans, or they sell the service for the loans. So, and once you have a great system for servicing loans and doing all the ACHs and all that stuff, then you've got a great system for it, and people will pay you to do it. So that's what they do. So anyway, they bundle these loans, they sell them all off by the thousands of loans, and these big giant corporations buy them up, and they would love for you to go 30 years. So they don't actually mind it at all. So that's an advantage for them. They hate when people just refinance out of every loan they have, or they keep selling every 3 years. So that's what's on it for both sides. And I think it's a great idea. They're still going to want to appraise it. They're still going to want to do all that stuff. And it's almost like an assumable. You're still going to have to come up with the difference in cash if there is one. But if let's say you're downsizing and you had a $700,000 house and you owe $550 on your loan, and now you're going to downsize to a $600,000 house, then you're fine. You won't need a thing, just an appraisal. Obviously, they want to make sure this house is worth it in case they ever have to foreclose, which is the whole point of an appraisal. The whole point of an appraisal is, if we have to foreclose, will we get our money back out of it, is what they're trying to figure out. Tammy.
So they wouldn't do a second mortgage necessarily. Like if you had
You can.
and
Absolutely, you can. Yeah, it's almost like a HELOC or anything.
our mortgage brokers might suffer as a result of this, because they probably wouldn't be doing as many mortgages, right?
They probably, yes, you're correct. Yes, we'll do better than mortgage people. We as agents will do better than mortgage people. Sorry, Chad, and a couple of you that do mortgages. But we'll do better than mortgage people on that. I don't know how common that's going to be, or if it's even going to be completely approved and in practice. But I think it's a great idea. And they're just doing anything they can now to sell houses, including getting rid of property taxes. If they can do that for only if you own, if you're homesteaded. Yeah, if you're homesteaded, then you won't. So they estimate that that's 32%, a little less than a third of homes in Florida are homestead, which was surprisingly low to me. I thought it'd be half. But they say like 32% of Florida homes are homesteaded. That's all that would be exempt. But that's good news for you if you own your home, or you as a real estate agent. That's great news.
But we have to vote on that, right? I think that's
going to be so there's a challenge. It's 32% of us own a house, and you got to get 60%. But homeowners are likely to vote, and there's typically 2 of them per house at least. So it may or may not pass. But even if you're a renter, your landlord is paying property. You're paying your landlord's property taxes, regardless. But that won't really help you, because it'll be investment.
And you might eventually be a buyer. Even though
Right.
you're.
I think we all aspire to, right? If we're not already buyers, we aspire to be homeowners. That's part of the American dream that is unreachable right now, for a lot of people. It is ridiculous. The first time home buyer in the last, I don't know how many years, has gone from the last 15 years, whatever, has gone from 28 to 40, which is crazy. Any other questions, comments, anything? Tammy.
I know it's racking them up today. So I have a buyer, the one that's probably going to buy like a 5-unit property. So the due diligence period, would you make it longer to review leases? I know he's got an attorney. I guess you'd have attorney review the leases. I'm sure there's not much you can do about those leases when how does that all work if he purchases?
You got to wait for him to expire. You take over the lease the way it is.
Okay.
The new owner takes over whatever they've got, which is what they're selling. Now, a lot of them will try to sell it, say, oh, well, they're under rented. You could get market value is this much. And we just, so-and-so have been there for so long. We're letting them do it, stay low or whatever, which means you'll probably have to let them do. But you can rework their leases when they're expired, when you renew.
So the lease is just automatically assumed in the new person's name.
Yes,
You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
And that's
Yeah,
with any investment, anything that's leased. Yes. When I
Okay.
buy, if you have tenants and I buy your property, I just
Right.
replace them. I just take your place.
Correct.
I can't kick
So,
them out. So you have to explain that to people when you're listing an investment property, which, I've done a lot of, because Florida Realty Investments, when they, they manage all these units, and when the owner wants to sell them, a lot of times I help them with that. And I have to talk to the tenants and say, look, you can't be kicked out early. They can't raise your rent right away. All that kind of stuff. Your lease is through February. It's still good through February, et cetera.
so it doesn't really matter about the due diligence on the leases then, because you're just going to take,
It takes a little bit of time. No, you still have to look at them. You still want to look at them.
Yeah.
What if they're terrible? What if I have to fix every little thing that goes, if they're bad leases,
Yeah.
you want to have an attorney review them for sure.
okay.
And you have the right to see their rental history and stuff like that if you have it under contract.
Oh, you mean their payment history for each
I mean,
tenant?
history, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll want to know how long they've been there. You'll want to know all that stuff.
So how
And you
much
have a-
time in the due diligence period would you do for like a 5-unit property?
Yeah, Brian says look at bank deposits. Brian does big shopping centers and stuff like that. Brian knows everything about that. He's in the chat, says look at bank deposits. Because you want rent rolls and you want to look at bank deposits, see what they're actually putting in and not just what's on the lease. Because if they're not collecting, then they might as well not be leased. Or if they're slow payers or no payers.
So you ask for their actual bank records then?
Yeah, and a lot of
That they're
managers will-
selling?
Yeah, and a lot of managers will. I mean, I know I look at some of our properties on our property management software, and a lot of them are on cash only. A money order only payments, because they've written bad checks or they've done something like that.
So even if they provided like the spreadsheet that shows income, expenses, blah, 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 that's not sufficient.
That's a representation to get you excited about the property to put it under contract. But then you got to check all that stuff. No, you definitely need due diligence for these things. I would say at least 45 days.
Okay.
And that includes your inspections and all that stuff.
Right.
Inspect what you expect, Brian says. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, so you don't get misrepresented. And that goes double for restaurants and stuff like that. A lot of people keep 2 sets of books, one for the tax man and one for the real thing. Any cash business? Any other questions or comments? All right, guys, we will not have a class next week. It is the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. We will not have a class, or an open forum. So do well. Reach out to me if you need me. Jeanette's here for you. Antonio's here for you. Anything that you guys need, let us know. And we will see you next week. Bye, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.